Malcolm, you're a hard act to follow. I loved it. Thank you. Bless you. Isn't this a great day? Aren't you glad you showed up right here? I know I am. I wanted to talk a little bit about words. I've learned a lot about words from the politicians that are funny. Let me read something from the very beginning of the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh and lived among us. Now, I think this is the New International Version that I wrote down. I read so many that, but this is Matthew 12:37. It's about words. We are held accountable for every idle word. By our word, we are acquitted, and by our word, we are condemned. That's a thought. So what I did, I read that, and then I looked it up in the Message. Well, I also in the Aramaic too, but didn't say what I was thinking. But here's one. Listen to this. Same thing. Every careless word will come back to haunt you. There is a time of reckoning. And then it says, words are powerful. Take them seriously. Well, that's a good start, isn't it? That's probably everything that needed to be said about words. But I'm going to say some more anyway. It's hard at times for me to take life extremely seriously. Now, my words I take seriously, but life itself, to me, has become a celebration. So a lot of the words around our house are teasing or things, like I try to think of things that I know will make Pat laugh. And I have become very, very good at it, really. She laughs a lot, and then same here. But so teasing about ourselves or this type of thing, even comedians do it. Isn't it Woody Allen? Let's see, what did he say now? Oh, he was being interviewed, and he had made his second movie and become very successful. And I believe it was Johnny Carson that asked him, said, how has life changed now that you're successful? And he said, well, now that I'm rich, I fail with a better class of woman. It was Dolly Parton that said, it takes a lot of money to look this cheap. And I always thought she looked just fine. Well, that thought, every careless word will come back. I mean, has an effect, it could have said. Okay, the good news is we are absolutely enfolded or surrounded by a listening universe. The bad news is we are surrounded by a listening universe. There's a good and a bad part to it. But the good thing is the listening universe is sympathetic. I have gone back, and in my Bible, my New Testament, there is a K by every time that Jesus mentioned the kingdom of heaven. And that was really, and I was always a little puzzled by that, because there would seem to be, from what I was studying at the time in a more fundamentalist environment, I guess I can use that word, but it seemed to me that then if everything I was believing at the time was true, then there was contradiction there. Because it seemed like that the kingdom of heaven should be after this life. And then you read over there and you sort of put it aside, but you read the kingdom of heaven is within you. That's in Luke the 17th, probably over about verse 31. But the kingdom of heaven is within you. Boy, now that threw me off, because it's hard to imagine then that he would be talking about afterlife if I'm carrying it around with me. Do you see? So, okay, that's part of the listening universe. Is this kingdom or this part of this universe that belongs to you, that is part, or we might say an extension of your life and who you are. But keep these things in mind then. It is a sympathetic listening energy. But what we need to know is that all of our words now are messengers of thought. Just like when that first scripture I read about in John, the first chapter, and it's referring to the Word was made flesh. I can promise you that that was a reference to Jesus coming as Messiah, coming as the Christ consciousness for the world, and to impact the world with that consciousness and bring change for the better. Okay? So then the Word became flesh. All right? Look at the words that we speak into this listening audience, into this listening universe. And the thing that we need to know is that the words that come out of our mouth are messengers of the thoughts that we think. And that's built around the belief system that we have within us. It's hard then to imagine, but the words that we send out representing the thoughts that we think. Now, we would think that a thinking universe would respond and say, well, this is probably going to be the best for him. Let me tell you, the energy about you responds to the level of your thoughts. If we never caught on to another thing in this life, if we actually caught on to that and know that the kind of thinking we're doing is actually designing our lives, and those words that come out represent all of the feelings that we've cultivated inside, and then we create an attitude built on those beliefs, you see? And we work then from that attitude, and we talk and we speak from that attitude. Well, if our thoughts are negative, we begin to get negative results. If our thoughts are positive, we begin to get positive thought. But here's the thing to remember. There is no separation between your thoughts and the words. And what our job is to really look into what we're doing. I know that I like my grandmother saying, watch your mouth. So I say that to myself pretty often. Just watch your mouth, Glenn. That's not what you should have said. Okay. And then what has to happen along with that is we then have to adjust the kind of thinking that we do. And it's not always immediate, is it? I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if all of these things that we're learning, that we could just turn off what we used to do that we didn't like, that was getting the wrong results, and suddenly be part of it? Well, if any of you have found that to be an instant thing, don't hold your hand up now, but catch me out at the door. I'd like to hear about it. Because somehow I'm mulling over all of this, probably, 30 years that I've been looking at it, and it seems like every day is a learning experience, and we began to see. But as you begin to live with this in mind, with this information, then you begin to see what's happening when the wrong thing comes out of people's mouths. Besides Woody Allen and Dolly Parton, it seemed, I can't remember who this is, but someone said, I'm going to be the greatest president this country's ever had. You probably didn't hear that. But I thought, well, boy, that's going to be wonderful, isn't it, if those words are true. Now, in spirit then, once again, in spirit then, there is no separation of these thoughts. I want to read some things now from Charles Fillmore. This is from the Revealing Word. Words are the vehicle through which ideas make themselves manifest. And then he says, and the Word of God is immanent in man and all of the universe. So that form of the word immanent is the form meaning indwelling. So the indwelling then of this word are creating this idea then actually is part of you and part of the universe. When we begin to realize that we have divine ideas that come to us, in another place, in a little book of prosperity that Charles Fillmore wrote, he makes this clear when he said, when you pray, like if you're short on money and you pray about money and income, it comes to you not in the form of dollar bills, but it comes to you in the form of ideas. And then you take those ideas and they translate into the money. Took me a long time to understand that too. I thought just working hard did it. Not necessarily. Some of the people that are the most prosperous that I've met and that I watch doing the most amount of good, I have several in mind, but it seems like they didn't work hard at all. I remember a painter, but he had a crew of people that were just absolutely wonderful, and they did all the work. And then he spent a lot of time. He was a member of the Colonial Country Club, and he liked to play golf, and so that was how he made his money. It seemed like, that just right, he'd check the crew in the morning, and then he would go play golf, and then check them again in the evening. And I thought, man, that guy, and of course the reason I knew him is I was building some retaining walls because his home, which was close to Colonial there, but his work, somehow he had developed a skill of using ideas, but he wasn't investing his time in the hard work. He was letting other people do that. So life isn't always exactly like we see it, is it? I mean, sometimes there is such a difference. But look at the words then that go out, and they represent the ideas that Spirit gives you. So we translate it into words, and like in our case, into the English language. Because a thought, I don't know what it would be like to have a thought without some identification of what the thought's about. Well, it comes out in words in our mind. Words in our mind, and we translate it to the words we say. All right. So, there are words to ourselves. This is one of the first things that I think about, because do you realize that you're in your mind, and it's in the form of thought, but it's in words, that there is a voice going on nearly all the time? That's right. Thing happened last night that I wasn't going to tell anybody about. But we've sort of muddled around with prayers about, I guess I can tell this, you said it. Is that all right? Okay. Pat, in our prayer and meditation last night, said, Spirit, I want this house to sell, and I want it right now. So we're trying to get to bed, and so Ingram sends an email saying we have a contract on your house. This is a true story, exactly as it happened. Well, so then the words to spirit, and then there are words to ourselves. Sometimes, like I said, I've looked at my words and I correct them because I said, that sounded a little wishy-washy, what I said to spirit. What I said in my prayer sounded sort of like iffy. And it reminded me of a movie. I probably years ago told you about this movie, but it was Amistad, or Amistad. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. And the movie was about a slave ship that had come from Africa, and it was after the law had been passed that we couldn't get any more from there. So the person in charge of the ship said, no, it's from the Caribbean, one of the islands in the Caribbean. And so there was then a court case. And the case went on because they were suing, or they were, presenting. This is an attorney, and he had an interpreter talking to the people, the Africans that were there. And so finally at the end, they were all cheering and happy because they had won the case. But then he said to the interpreter, he said, do you know that this case is being appealed? And then he used the expression, he said, now tell them for me that I should have told them this. And he said, I can't say that to them. And he said, well, why? And he said, because in their language, there's no should-haves and could-haves and would-haves. And then I thought, the minute I heard that, I said, do you know, in the world of spirit, there are no should-haves and could-haves and would-haves. Okay, so take that to heart, because I believe it's a key thing. When we affirm things then, we don't should-have and would-have and could-have or I wish. That's another word not to get into, I wish. Another one that I never use is I need. It's not, in other words, what I would do is imply that it's there already. For example, one of my favorite things that I go around saying to myself partly, and then to friends if they want to listen to me, and sometimes I've said it so many times that they quote it back to me, but it's an abundant universe. It's an abundant universe. This is the absolute truth, but when you take that into your life and you say it with meaning, it's an absolute, and it's not an if or I wish there was, or it's an absolute. It's an abundant universe. And it is true. It is very true. But much of what we say still has the potential, but when we put it and form it in wishy-washy words, which I'm trying to work my way totally forever out of wishy-washy. Okay, another one that I like. My good comes to me easily, naturally, and in divine order. And this is part of much of the praying that I do. I bring that in very often. My good comes to me because I see God's good as mine. If I have chosen it and I affirm it, it's mine. It's mine. When we got through saying whatever's to the highest good of everybody about selling the house, and Pat said, I'm tired of all of this stuff, or that's what I took that she meant, then to say, absolutely, Spirit, sell this house right now. Spirit has that's in your space, part of the energy, listening to you once again, has the power to do anything. Has the power to do anything. Much of the things that I think about, though, I will put my highest good or the most benevolent outcome along with it. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words, it is sort of qualifying, but only when I'm not sure. See, the thing about it is this energy that we are sending words into knows the future. We don't always know the future. So what happens then? We speak the word. Now, the centurion that met Jesus, when I say that, he sent his servants to meet Jesus because one of his servants, his very favorite person in his household, had become very sick. And so he sent them, and also he sent this as a message, I'm sure, because Jesus was getting ready to get on his way. And he said, you don't have to bother to show up at my house. Just speak the word only. Now, so then when we're speaking and making a request, then that is the power. And he described this power as this. He said, I have servants, I have men under me. I think it was soldiers that he said it, not servants, but soldiers under me. And I tell this one to go, and he goes. I tell this one to come, and he comes. Now, he said, I know that you are of that same order, which this is implying that he understood that the spiritual order was happening just like in his own life. And so he had recognized, and Jesus said about him, said, you know, I've not seen faith. And I think that it was more than that. I think he could have also said, I have not seen understanding like this in all of Israel. In other words, in all of his ministry, there's somebody finally that catches on because they check it with their own life and the way they're living their life, and they understand the power then of the spoken word. It is powerful. It is powerful. Now, part of the power that Jesus had, and this is mentioned of him so many times, that he spoke with authority. And I think in our conversations in prayer and with God, that it's okay. We might be thinking what we need to do is be humble. But actually, we are of as much authority as we believe we are. In other words, if we believe we have no authority, we're right. If we believe we're a person of authority, we're right. It's just that way. So, speaking then with authority, and part of the prayer, this is another thing, the words of commitment and the words that, like in polite commands, when Jesus prayed, it wasn't like, please give me this or give me that, but it was like a polite command, like give us this day our daily bread. And all of it, if you break down that prayer, and he said in the beginning, I will teach you how to pray. And then for generations and thousands of years, people have taken it as that's what to pray. He didn't say that's what to pray. It's all right to pray the Lord's Prayer, but the words that he said was, this is the way that you do it. And he did it in polite commands, very polite, loving commands to the universe and to the Father. The other interesting thing is that we use the word Father when we're praying, but actually Abba, and he was criticized and everybody mad at him about it because he had used the familiar term. It would be like ours, instead of saying Father, but saying Daddy or Papa. And that's what he was doing in his prayers and in his interaction with the Father. Okay. Besides these words being absolutes, words of commitment are so important. When we go into anything, I'm trying to think of several things that have happened to me lately, to where the important part of it is that I had commitment to it, and that I expressed that commitment. And this unfolded the way that I had dreamed. Do you see? Now then, there's the words to ourselves and the words to God. And they're really all the same in that every word is the word to God. But to put ourselves down seriously as part of a thought, like the realistic of a thought of that we are unworthy, and use that kind of word, whether in prayer or not. I heard a prayer, and I really had missed that part and then heard about it. But that in the service, the funeral service, the Chief Justice Scalia, that his son praying is that he was a wonderful man, a sinner saved by grace. Well, that's a way to look at ourselves. The imperfect and the imperfect is all right. That's not, I know that we are loved as much in that imperfect state as ever. But to find ourselves putting ourselves down in our mind is the wrong direction. This is a wrong direction. And then beyond that, putting other people down is the wrong direction. These are the kind of words that come back to haunt us, because spirit is always listening. There's that listening going on and responding going on. So the words to others should always be uplifting. If we can find a way to just always be that way. I did a wedding recently, and I added something that I had never put in a wedding ceremony, but it was when I finally got my 55-year-old son married off. Well, and I just adore the lady, by the way. She's just wonderful. But I said, I'm going to put this in because it's something I've spent a lifetime thinking about. And I said, it's become very important to me because of realizing the truth of it. And so I said, I started out with that at the very beginning before I start the wedding. I said, I want to tell you, I want to share this information with you. And I said, here it is. If you treat your loved one like the person of your dreams, the dream will come true. I found that out by trying it, and I wanted to share it with him. I haven't put it in any other wedding. I may put it in another one later. Does anybody want to get married? Well, no. Here's the thing. With all of this, what I really want to tell you at the end here, that you need to hold in your mind, but you are the Word of God expressing as you. Thank you.